My sister's bridal registry included a $10,000 oven, designer shoes, and a house fund. I responded, "You must think I'm a bank." She replied, "Then you're uninvited." So I stayed home. Later, she posted that the photographer canceled because my card wasn't on file. The family finally saw who'd been paying all along. And then, when the registry came in, I actually laughed. Not the polite kind there, the sharp, what the hell looking, a kind of laugh that echoes off the walls when you're home alone. A $10,000 oven. Not even joking. It was Italian. Red. Called something pretentious like La Cucina della Regina. And she wanted it as a gift. From her guests. For me. Like I was a distant aunt with a private yacht. That wasn't even the highlight. There were 4 pairs of designer shoes. Louboutins, Valentinos, even some new brand I'd never heard of, but Googled out of morbid curiosity. All between $900 and $1,500. There was a $2,000 wellness retreat package she tagged as post-wedding recovery. And the best part? A house fund. That looked sweet and innocent until I clicked the details. The note read, "Kelly, since you didn't throw a bridal shower, we figured this would be easier for you. $5,000 would mean the world to us." Not suggested. Expected. She actually personalized the registry so that specific items were aimed at certain people. Grandma was supposed to buy them a $1,200 espresso machine. My dad a custom wine fridge. Me, the house fund. Because apparently, covering her rent for the last 7 months wasn't generous enough. What made it all worse was that my parents didn't even blink when I showed them. My mom smiled and said, "Oh, Vanessa always had expensive taste." Like that was a good thing. Like I was being difficult for not wanting to drop thousands on a woman who hadn't held a job longer than a carton of eggs lasts in the fridge. And don't even get me started on her fiancé. Mark had 2 jobs in the last year. One he quit because the manager had a power trip. The other fired him for showing up drunk twice. I kept my mouth shut at first, thinking maybe it was stress, maybe he'd pull it together before the wedding. But every time I visited, he was either day drinking or missing entirely. And my sister would just shrug it off like it was cute. He's a free spirit. It wasn't cute when I realized half the wedding vendors were sending their invoices to me. I'm not exaggerating. I paid for the venue deposit, the florist and the photographer, all thinking I was just helping out a little. Vanessa had been forwarding me emails saying the vendors needed urgent payments, that our parents were handling the rest, and it was just a timing issue. I trusted her. I shouldn't have. Then one morning I got an email directly from the photographer. I guess they got confused and thought I was the bride. They asked if I wanted the deluxe photo booth upgrade and reminded me my remaining was due the next day. My name. My card. Not hers. So I texted her one line, "You've mistaken me for a bank." Her reply came almost instantly, "Then you're uninvited." That was it. No explanation. No apology. No gratitude. Just exile. I stared at the screen for a while. I didn't even feel hurt, just embarrassed that I'd let it get this far. I screenshotted the text and forwarded it to my parents with zero commentary. Then I locked my cards, canceled the upcoming payments, and booked myself a massage for the day of the wedding. If I was going to be cut out, I was going to be gone. The day of the wedding, I stayed in my robe till noon. It was kind of peaceful in a weird way. My phone was off most of the morning. Around 11, I turned it back on. Dozens of texts started rolling in. I ignored all of them until one from my cousin popped up. All it said was, "Dude, check Vanessa's Instagram." I opened it. She had just posted a photo of her bouquet and captioned it, "Photographer canceled last minute." Crushed. Can't believe this happened. I didn't need to wonder why. Because my card wasn't on file anymore. I'd canceled it the night before. What Vanessa didn't realize was how quickly panic would ripple through the crowd. My absence was already being noticed. But now there was no photographer. The planner was frantically calling back up. The vibe was off. My parents were confused. Guests were whispering. And Vanessa? She refused to say why I wasn't there. She didn't tell them what she'd said. She didn't tell them what she did. Which made it even worse. Because without answers, people started making up their own. By the time the ceremony even started, word had already gotten around that something was off. Not just my absence. That part confused people, but something deeper. You could feel it in the way the wedding planner kept checking her phone every 30 seconds, or how Vanessa's bridesmaids looked like they were trying too hard to act normal. And then there was the photographer, or the lack of one. It took about 5 minutes before someone asked the question, "Why isn't there anyone taking pictures?" Vanessa brushed it off. She told the guests the photographer had a family emergency. A few people nodded politely. But people talk, especially when they're stuck waiting in rows of chairs while someone's cousin plays off-key violin solos. And when guests talk, they compare stories. And when too many stories don't line up, rumors start. So while Vanessa was walking down the aisle, looking like she was about to receive an Oscar, guests were already whispering about why I wasn't there, and why there wasn't a single camera capturing it. That afternoon, I was sitting on my balcony with a coffee and my phone on silent, watching the wind pick up in little waves through the trees. Peaceful, detached, not trying to make a scene, but definitely done pretending I was the villain for not continuing to finance someone else's delusions. At 3:17 p.m., I turned my phone back on. 6 missed calls. Love and texts. The one that stood out was from my cousin Emily. She said you didn't show because you were unstable about not being maid of honor. That made me laugh out loud. Vanessa didn't even have a maid of honor. Said it was too much pressure for one person. What she really meant was no one wanted to do the work. I'd already said no months ago, after she told me she needed me to help plan the wedding but wouldn't feel comfortable with me standing beside her in the photos because we didn't match the aesthetic. I paid for the flowers. Apparently, I wasn't aesthetic enough for the pictures. What Emily didn't know, what no one at the wedding knew, was that Vanessa hadn't just forgotten to invite me. She had deliberately uninvited me when I refused to drop $5,000 into her house fund and told her I wasn't paying another invoice unless someone else stepped up. Her response? She told me I was too negative to be around right now and said it would be better for everyone if I didn't come. I screenshotted it, sent it to our parents, and waited. My mom finally called at 4:12 p.m., right as the reception was starting. I let it ring out. She called again. This time I picked up. She didn't even say hello. She asked me where I was and why Vanessa looked like she was about to cry in the bridal suite. I told her to ask Vanessa why I wasn't there. Then I hung up. 15 minutes later, everything fell apart. The photographer showed up, not to take pictures, but to deliver paperwork in person. She walked into the reception with a black folder, went straight to my dad, and handed him an unpaid invoice stapled to a canceled contract. Right in front of the wedding party, she said, "Just returning this." Unfortunately, we had to cancel due to a declined card on file. It was under the name Kelly Sloan. I assumed Kelly was someone in the family. The silence that followed was deafening, like a glass shattering on the floor. My dad asked her to stay, not to work, but to explain. She said she'd been emailing me directly for months, that Vanessa hadn't communicated with her after the initial introduction. Every upgrade, payment, and reschedule had gone through me. Guests started noticing, leaning in to catch what was happening. Vanessa was still mingling, her smile plastered on like it was stapled there. A groomsman tried to pull her aside to warn her, but she brushed him off. My cousin texted me, "Your dad looks like he's going to lose it." Then my phone rang. It was Dad. I stepped inside to take the call. He asked one question: "How much have you paid for this wedding?" I didn't hold back. I listed everything: venue deposit, floral design, photographer, catering down payment, bridal suite, dress alterations. It totaled just under $14,000. There was a long pause. Then he said, "We're having a family meeting tomorrow. This ends now." And he hung up. Back at the wedding, things were unraveling. Vanessa couldn't answer questions about the photographer, the missing money, or why I wasn't there. Since she wouldn't tell the truth, the family started filling in the blanks. Some thought I was sick. Others assumed we'd had a falling out. One uncle heard Vanessa had tried to cut me out to keep the spotlight on herself. But everyone agreed something was deeply wrong. For the first time in years, people started questioning why Vanessa was always at the center of chaos while I was left cleaning it up. The morning after, I woke up to 7 missed calls, 3 from Dad, 1 from Mom, and the rest from unfamiliar numbers, probably relatives suddenly eager to catch up, now that the family's golden child had stumbled in front of everyone. At 8:07 a.m., Dad texted, "Come over. Family meeting. Vanessa will be there." I stared at it, then replied with one word, "Okay." When I walked into the living room, everyone was seated. Dad, arms crossed. Mom, unusually silent. Vanessa, on the far end of the couch, still in last night's makeup, eyes puffy but defiant. Mark, her new husband, sat next to her, reeking of last night's after-party and barely awake. No one spoke for a moment. Then Dad nodded at me. I started small. Timeline, expenses, receipts, vendor names, emails, screenshots. I handed over printed copies of the key documents and watched my parents piece it together. They hadn't paid for the wedding. I had. Quietly, reluctantly, entirely. Then I added the final blow. Vanessa uninvited me when I said I couldn't keep paying. She said it was better for everyone if I stayed home. Mom turned to Vanessa and asked if it was true. Vanessa didn't deny it. She just shrugged and said, "She made everything so stressful. I didn't want drama on my wedding day." Mark mumbled something about me being jealous and Vanessa just wanting her moment. That's when Dad stood up. I'd never seen him look so disappointed. He didn't yell, just looked at them and said, "You took advantage of your sister. You lied to us. And now you're going to fix it." Vanessa rolled her eyes. Mark tried to laugh it off. But no one else was amused. Then my grandfather walked in. No one expected him. He hadn't been at the wedding, wasn't feeling well. But he'd heard enough from my aunt to show up. Leaning on his cane, his voice sharp, he looked at Vanessa and said, "If Kelly hadn't paid for everything, you'd have had a courthouse wedding at best." Then he turned to my parents. "You funded a lie, and you let her drag Kelly down with her." The room went quiet. Then my grandmother, who'd been silent by the fireplace, spoke up. "We want our gift back. The check we gave you, we want it returned." Mark sat up, stunned. "What? That's not fair." But Dad cut him off. "Fair? You let someone else pay for your wedding while you partied through the planning. You've never held a job longer than 2 months, and now you want to cash in on everyone's generosity like you earned it." He turned to Vanessa. "No more rent. No more favors. No more covering for you. If you want to stay married to him, fine. But you're paying your own bills now. Both of you get jobs, or you're out of this house." Vanessa tried to cry, tried to spin it, blamed the stress, said I was cold, distant since childhood, that it wasn't all her fault. No one bought it. The golden child image shattered right there, in front of 3 generations. The family finally saw what I'd known for years. The fragile little flower was a leech. After the meeting, things went quiet, uncomfortably so. Vanessa acted like nothing happened. My parents didn't speak to her for the rest of the day. I thought that might be the end of it. Messy family drama, lesson learned. But the real story was just beginning. The next morning, my phone buzzed at 6:43 a.m. It was my grandmother. She never calls that early. I answered immediately. Her voice was calm, but carried an edge I hadn't heard before. "Kelly, sweetheart, I need you to come over. Now." 20 minutes later, I was at Grandma's kitchen table, hoodie on, coffee barely kicking in. Grandpa was there, reading glasses on, holding their floral-edged checkbook. Check number 1183 was missing. Grandma had spotted a $4,500 withdrawal on their bank statement, made days before Vanessa's wedding. Grandpa didn't recall writing it. They got a copy from the bank. The check was made out to Vanessa Sloan, memo line reading wedding costs, signed with a shaky R. Sloan. It wasn't Grandpa's crisp signature. Vanessa had forged it. I was stunned. She'd stolen from the grandparents who loved her unconditionally, who'd have given her the money if she'd asked. They'd filed a fraud report, frozen the funds, and were giving her one chance to confess. I knew she wouldn't. At home, I didn't confront her. Let her dig her own hole. Later, Mom called, tired. Vanessa was back home, alone, no Mark, no ring. They'd fought. He'd humiliated her at a job interview she'd arranged, showing up drunk, passing out in the car. She left him that night, taking just a bag. 2 days later, Vanessa showed up at my door. No makeup, no designer clothes, just a gray hoodie. She looked like my sister again. "I did something stupid," she said. "I've ruined everything. Mark's not who I thought. Can you help me leave him?" I let her in. We didn't talk about the check yet, but her face said she knew I knew. She stayed in my guest room. The house felt calm, no drama. Next morning, she was still there, holding a mug, saying, "I'm done with him." She confessed to forging the check, admitting she cashed it, thinking she'd pay it back. I told her the bank had flagged it. Everyone knew. She asked if Grandma and Grandpa hated her. I said no, but love isn't rescue. We went to their house. Vanessa apologized, no excuses, and returned the $4,500 with a cashier's check. Grandma said it meant more than she could know. Back at my place, Vanessa said she wanted to annul the marriage. The license was never finalized. She filed for it. Mark didn't take it well, but Dad shut him down. Vanessa started job hunting, landing a part-time bookstore gig. The family began to see her differently, with cautious respect. She'd made a mess, but was cleaning it up. One night, she sat at my table, admitting she'd broken something in me. She showed me her budget, job schedule, and plans to earn my trust back. I told her I didn't want our relationship built on debt, but on truth. She whispered, "Then I'll give you that." 3 months later, things settled. Vanessa lived with our parents, paying rent, working at the bookstore, budgeting toothpaste. She liked the work, said it gave her life weight. She visited Grandma and Grandpa weekly, just listening. The family noticed. Mom credited me for holding the rope. Cousins asked for advice. Vanessa wasn't the old chaos anymore. One night, she brought soup, bread she'd baked, and $150 from her paychecks. Not much, but hers. I gave her a letter I'd written, detailing my hurt and hope. She read it, saying she didn't deserve forgiveness but was earning it. We ate, watched an old movie, just sisters, honest for once. Before leaving, she thanked me for letting her come back. I said she'd burned everything down but was rebuilding from the ashes. She laughed, real this time. Vanessa was just my sister now, flawed, trying, and finally standing on her own. Our relationship wasn't a ledger anymore. It was a second chance.